In this video, I will be discussing several aspects about the implementation of a deposit refund system for electronics in Vermont. First, I will discuss what the problem is and the opportunity we have to address it, then move on to the feasibility and implementation of the system, followed by the potential effectiveness and benefits it would provide. Then I will do a quick overview of the key stakeholders and finally end by pointing out the major issues that would need to be solved in order to successfully implement a deposit refund system for electronics. The big problem we have today is that e-waste is being generated at a much faster rate than it's being dealt with. On top of this, there is not actually any legislation at the federal level to deal with this issue. The opportunity we have in Vermont is to step up to the plate and become a leader in the area of e-waste management by implementing a deposit refund system for electronics. Although this is a major project, it will require vast amounts of resources as well as cooperation from various stakeholders. I believe the fact that we already have a successful deposit refund system in this state will be very helpful in smoothing the process. Clearly, the details will need to be tweaked a bit when switching the application of the system from beverage containers to consumer electronics, especially when it comes to how much will be charged for the deposit, as electronics are much more expensive to recycle. Finally, we will need to enhance current recycling facilities to accommodate e-waste wherever possible, as well as developing completely electronic recycling facilities in order to accommodate increased recycling demand. The successful implementation of a deposit refund system has the potential to be very effective and provide several benefits to society at large. First and foremost, the system would drastically decrease the amount of e-waste that ends up in landfills, as well as increasing the rate at which electronic materials are being reused in the production process, and ultimately slowing the rate at which they must be extracted from the earth. A major benefit of this system is the potential for positive net revenues, which could be used for various projects that would further dampen the harmful effects of e-waste. Another great aspect of this initiative is that it leads to a situation in which the polluter pays, as those who do not return their electronics in order to receive their refund are the ones who ultimately cover the cost of recycling. However, if there are not enough funds in the deposit pool, then the cost is shifted to the producer of the electronics in a scheme following the principle of individual producer responsibility, also known as IPR. This framework will provide incentive for producers to develop products that last longer and are both less costly and easier to recycle when they reach the end of their useful lives. Although there are many other key stakeholders, I chose to focus on the three most visible players in the deposit refund system. Producers are the ones who introduce electronics into the market, and they will ultimately bear some of the costs when it comes to dealing with the recycling of these electronics and developing the proper infrastructure necessary to do so. Consumers are another key stakeholder, as they are the ones who create the demand for the increased production of electronics. Under the deposit refund system, consumers who fail to return their old electronics will bear much of the cost of recycling. When it comes to the bottom line, this system would simply not work if consumers failed to do their part and did not participate in returning their used electronics. The backbone of this program will be the recycling and collection facilities, as the end goal is to properly dispose and hopefully reuse a majority of the electronic waste that is generated by consumers. One major obstacle that must be overcome for this system to work properly is ensuring we develop the necessary infrastructure needed to handle an increased load of e-waste. Although it will be a very costly endeavor, I believe that between the excess deposit fees from consumers and additional funding from both the electronics industry and the government, the cost of this infrastructure can be covered. Another difficulty facing the successful implementation of a deposit refund system is ensuring that consumers do their part. After all, if consumers do not actually increase the rate at which they recycle, the entire system would be a failure. There are several ways in which we can ensure a high return rate, such as providing consumers with not only monetary incentive, but also by keeping them informed of the dangers of e-waste, letting them know that what they were doing is a good thing for the environment, and by making sure that it is relatively easy and hassle-free for them to return their electronics.